Zach is back. It's the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
All right, welcome back in. 4:15 is the time from the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. Number, as always, on this very busy Friday show, 609-919-9200. What a hockey game last night. Game 7 in Pittsburgh. Unfortunately, Pittsburgh is moving on to the Stanley Cup Final, and we hope that Nashville does get the victory, but should set up a good final that will start on Monday in Pittsburgh, as you have Peter Laviolette taking the Nashville Predators to the Stanley Cup Final, his third Stanley Cup Final in his career, and then you'll have Sidney Crosby and the Penguins looking to repeat as champions, someone that will be a part of all the coverage. He's the TV play-by-play voice of the Panthers, but he will be doing the Stanley Cup Final as part of the pre- and post show on Westwood One, and that, of course, is our good friend Steve Goldstein. Goldie is kind enough to hop on board with us right now. Steve, appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for the time, and how are you, my friend?
Awesome. I'm doing well, Zach. Good to be with you. I'm just trying to get my stuff together to pack this thing, not knowing how long, how long it'll be gone. Could it go 4 games, 6 or 7? So we got to bring a lot of stuff.
Well, yeah, no doubt about that. Hey, before we get to the Stanley Cup Final, how about last night? What an unbelievable Game 7, Goldie.
It was a great sporting event, and I saw the ratings came out. More than 3 million people watched it, which is great. I know Charles Barkley was on TNT at halftime when the Cavs predictably were, on a collision course with the Warriors. Everyone knew that would be the matchup all season long. And, Barkley was saying, I'm leaving. I'm going to go turn on the hockey game. It's 1-1, y'all. So I thought it was a great quote by Barkley. It was a great sporting event. Even if you're not a big hockey person, do or die, the one and done. I mean, it was Game 7. It goes into overtime and then into double overtime. What drama. And Craig Anderson really played well, and you got to give Ottawa a ton of credit. They've been underdog all the way through.
That Ottawa team is a special one, and we've seen what Anderson had to go through during the season and still has to deal with his personal life. And then also Carlson just has been sensational playing with that injury as well. Just what makes that team so special, Goldie?
Well, those two guys were great. And Anderson's actually a guy that I know fairly well. He was.
Steve, you still there?
And of course.
Steve.
Yeah, you got me, Zach?
Yep, we got you. Sorry, your phone just cut out there for a second.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, maybe because it's like 108 degrees in Florida this afternoon. Maybe the towers aren't working great. Yeah, Ottawa, and give Guy Boucher a lot of credit. You mentioned the two, Anderson and Carlson, and they're underrated. Turris, Stone, Hoffman, these guys are good players. And give Guy Boucher a lot of credit. He came in there and, remember, he went to the conference finals with Tampa Bay also to a Game 7 before they lost the year the Bruins made it. So here's Guy Boucher. He's lost 2 one-goal games in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final a few years ago with Tampa and last night with Ottawa. So obviously he knows how to coach as well.
Now, get into this final that we're going to see that will commence on Monday night. You have 2 American coaches for the first time in the Stanley Cup Final, Peter Laviolette and Mike Sullivan. How about that storyline?
Well, I think it's awesome, first of all. And those 2 guys have been around for a while, and they're never the real big names. Obviously people talk about coaching, they talk about Mike Babcock and Hitchcock and those types. So I think it's awesome to see. It just shows you how far U.S. hockey has come. That finally you have a matchup with 2 U.S. coaches, and for the first time ever, obviously, no Canadian head coach. So, and I'm looking at it to be a great series. You look at it, the center position, you figure Pittsburgh's got a big advantage, but I thought that when it was 2-2 when Nashville was playing Anaheim, and, Anaheim didn't win another game. So the way Nashville's goaltender and the top 4 defensemen play, it's going to be hard to beat them. Of course, Pittsburgh, Crosby, they just find ways to win. They're going to get some people back as well. I think good chance Mike Fisher will be back for Nashville. But, Pittsburgh, look, to do what they've done, obviously Letang's not coming back. But to be where they are without Chris Letang, who really was their only, it was kind of like him and a bunch of guys. And when they lose him, you figure no way could they make it. So I give both those teams a ton of credit for getting through adversity, getting through injuries, and being where they are. And I'm assuming it's just going to be a great series.
With Sullivan, because when he was here in New York with the Rangers, not a lot of people were genuflecting to him when he was Torts' assistant. And then he goes to Pittsburgh, takes over, during the season last year, wins a cup, and now is 4 wins away from repeating. Just how about the job that he's done, and why does he fit that team so well to get that response from players that we know have the talent to go all the way?
Well, it's a great topic you bring up, Zach, because he was labeled for a long time And, Tortorella didn't have the great reputation because torts is torts. So he was labeled for a long time as a guy that, he just kind of was with Tortorella, and he didn't get the credit he deserved. And it was Pittsburgh that actually came and said, hey, do you want to coach our AHL team? Jim Rutherford called him to coach Wilkes-Barre. And then obviously the Penguins fired the head coach, bring him up, and the rest, as they say, is history. So, Mike Sullivan has a little bit of Laviolette in him. It's that intense, go all the time type attitude, yet he is able to give Crosby and Malkin and some of those star players their freedom to do what they need to do. And, sometimes you just kind of scratch your head and you wonder why certain coaches in certain situations just work very well. But obviously, look, he knows the game through and through, and Pittsburgh's a great organization. I mean, how many guys have they called up? You got to give them credit with injuries, and these guys just step right in. I mean, Jake Gensel, no one knew who he was 4 months ago. He's a top-line player now. Pretty amazing.
Steve Goldstein with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show, talking about the Stanley Cup Final, Nashville and Pittsburgh. Let's get to Laviolette, because they're an 8th seed. They're the sexy story. They've been a fun team. We all know how good of a coach Laviolette has been. This is his 3rd Stanley Cup Final. With this group, though, what are the buttons that he's pushing right now that got them in this direction of 4 wins away from being a champion? Because not a lot of people, when you're an 8th seed, I know it happens in hockey, but not a lot of people pick you to get to this point, and he has his team playing great hockey at the right time of the year.
And, it wasn't one of those years where it was 98, 99 points or 97 points. They only had 94. So it's been incredible. And he's done it before. He is an aggressive coach, up-tempo, that forecheck, that 1-3-1. It was interesting to me because I did the rinkside reporting for the West Final. And Randy Carlisle kept talking about this system that Nashville runs, and he kept using the word unique. And, that's a pretty strong word in sports. You could say someone's system in whatever sport it is, difficult, or they do things that make it hard. When you use the word unique, and Randy Carlisle is a pretty smart guy, he knows exactly what he was saying. So what Laviolette has them do is just, a lot of pressure in the neutral zone at the red line, and they just don't want to let you get through. And obviously he's been able to get through to these guys, and he has the horses that are able to do it. And you also have to give their assistant coach, Phil Housley, who runs the defense, great NHL defenseman. He's in the Hall of Fame, a ton of credit. He's been there for, I think, 3 or 4 years now, and he's done a great job with, Ellis and Ekholm and Yossi, and now Subban is there. So the great top 4D. Pekka Rinne probably handles the puck as well or better than any goalie in the league. He's almost like an extra defenseman, and their whole philosophy, much like Pittsburgh's, is that D, get the puck and get it out. Get it moving out of your own zone. They don't care if it's off the glass. They don't care if it's 50 feet in the air. However you got to do it, get that puck out of danger. And Nashville with those 4D obviously do it very well. And then they've had some other players like Aberg and Sissons. No one knew who any of these guys were, and now they're starting to emerge. They've got an opportunity to play, an opportunity partially to play due to injury, and those guys are making the most of it.
How do you evaluate this goalie matchup?
You got to give Rinne, Zach, I think, the advantage no matter what, I think. But, I mean, look what Matt Murray's done. And last year he was unbelievable, and the most impressive thing to me maybe about Murray is he is 10-2 the last 2 years after a loss. And that's as impressive as anything. Now, Rinne has never been this far before. So it's incredible to think that Matt Murray, who's technically still a rookie, right? I mean, he came up last year. He wins the Cup, and then this year was his rookie year. So he's still a rookie trying for his second Cup. And you wouldn't think, to say that he's got the advantage, but he's got the experience advantage, which is incredible because Rinne's 34 years old. So, I think both guys are great. The way Rinne has played and the way he handles the puck may be a slight advantage to him, maybe. But again, that's another one of those matchups in this series that is just tooth and nail tight. It's hard to call.
With Murray and such a little bit experience, but so much experience in terms of winning, and heck, he wasn't even the goalie for part of the Stanley Cup playoffs because of the injury that did occur, and then you had Marc-Andre Fleury come in and play well until they pulled him. How does he just stay at that age so cool, calm, and collective and perform like that, where it's like basically like you've been saying with this Pittsburgh team, they're just plugging guys in and they're getting those results?
He's like that off the ice, too. He is a very quiet, unassuming guy. I mean, that's just his personality. And, that calmness factor is probably a good thing, for him. Some guys need that fire and act a little bit differently and have a little bit more emotion. He just doesn't show much. And, I just think the guy's really talented above everything else. And the pressure, because of his personality, just doesn't get to him. So, you start to combine those two things, a talented guy that doesn't let anything faze him and treats games just like another game. And there you go, the magic formula. Murray was a great draft pick by the Penguins, and obviously they've developed him well. And here he is again. It's an incredible story that he's back in the Stanley Cup Final.
On the way out with Steve Goldstein, who joins us right now. You could be a part of his coverage of the Stanley Cup Final by tuning into a station that carries the Westwood One broadcast. That atmosphere in Nashville, you talk about packing your suitcase for games 3 and 4. You better bring some earplugs because that place gets loud, and you better be careful down there on ice level because they throw everything. Live animals get thrown on the ice, Goldie. It's nuts.
Yeah, they had skinned ducks last round. They had catfish. The whole Tennessee offensive lineman. It is great to see. It's almost like a combination, and Laviolette's actually said this. It's kind of like a combination, Zach, of a college basketball game meets World Cup soccer because, they're wild and crazy and, it's packed, and it seems like that arena is kind of small even though it holds 17,000. And then they've got all these different chants. They're yelling at goalies after goals, and they've got a whole big, long chant that they do. They don't just, yell the guy's name and sing it. So I think it's a great description of, European soccer match meets college basketball on campus facility, and you combine it like that, and they, the biggest thing I think is they believe it gives them a lift, and sometimes home ice advantage, especially in the Stanley Cup playoffs, doesn't mean a whole lot. Maybe it's a little over 50%, but a lot of this stuff is belief, and the Predators believe they're a better team at home because of those fans, and sure enough, they've only lost one game so far at home.
Goldie, I know we touched on it a little bit, but just give me your 3 biggest keys to this series. When you evaluate this matchup, the 3 biggest things that jump off the page to you are?
I'm going to go with, does Mike Fisher come back, and can he get it done defensively against either Crosby or Malkin, depending upon who the home team is, gets the last change. I think that is a huge factor. And then part 2 of that would be whoever the other center is, whether it's Sissons or Yarncroke, can that guy handle Crosby or Malkin? I didn't think they could against Anaheim. They certainly did, especially in games 5 and 6. And then the other factor for me is, I really think it's the Nashville power play. They didn't get it done against Anaheim. They still won the series. I don't think you can beat Matt Murray consistently and score enough on him if you don't score on the power play. So those are really the things for me. I still think Pittsburgh has the best player in the series in Sid. And usually when you have the best player in the series, you usually win the series. Now, I don't know if that was the case last time because I thought Getzlaf was the best player. Rene was really close to him, and Anaheim didn't win. But, the way Crosby has played these last couple of years, until you win that 4th game and there's zeros on the clock, you just cannot count the guy out at all. So I think those are the keys for Nashville. I think, Pittsburgh with the experience, they have that factor over them, but Nashville's going to have to score in the power play. The Penguins will take a few penalties. You got to cash in.
Now, I'll ask you our poll question today since you mentioned Charles Barkley earlier and brought a little NBA into the conversation. What lasts longer, the NBA Finals or the Stanley Cup Final?
That's a great question. I think the NBA Final, Zach, because they spread the thing out. Like, doesn't it start like July 8th? When is that thing starting?
Well, no, I'm talking in terms of games. Yes, we all know that thing is spread out. But in terms of games, and let's judge it by games because the NBA, heck, I may be 33 years old before they start that final. I'm only 22 right now. So just in terms of games, what lasts longer in terms of games?
Well, now you just ruined my day by bringing up you're only 22, but that's okay. You know what? How about I go with they both go 7? And I really believe they both
I'll sign for that.
To go 7.
I will sign for that. I'll take it in a second.
Great would that be?
Oh, it'd be unbelievable as a sports fan. And the NBA needs
now,
it because...
Zach, I have a poll question myself for you. Do I torture myself tomorrow night and Sunday night when I get to Pittsburgh and actually go watch what is right now the horrendous Mets, who I love?
Oh, please don't.
Play the Pirates.
Hope for rain. Just hope for rain. Hope it gets rain out and you don't have to see the Mets because if I have to see Terry Collins mismanage this bullpen and take a starting pitcher out after 84 pitches again, you have no hair. I'll soon not to have any hair because the Mets have been brutal. They've been absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
And I know you're a big Mets fan.
It's now about, 4:30? I think Edgen and Smoker are warming up for it. So.
Hey, he'll use them. Goldie, this was a whole lot of fun. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Enjoy the games, all right?
Anytime, buddy. Thanks, Zach.
Thanks so much. There's Steve Goldstein joining us on the Zach Gelb Show. Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. A big Met fan, that is, Steve Goldstein, because last year when the Rangers were in the Stanley Cup playoffs and they were going up against Pittsburgh, because I want to say Florida was playing the Islanders some point in the playoffs last year. Goldie did make his way to MSG, and we got to meet each other. We've exchanged a bunch of tweets over the years, and we were sitting on that bridge, and we were bitching about the Mets. And fast forward a year later, we're still bitching about the Mets because they give you a lot to really just complain about, and they lose again last night. But with the Stanley Cup Final, I think you're going to get a really good one. I do. And I'll answer that poll question coming up later in the show. He took a very PC answer there. Hey, I'll say both go 7 games. Something may tell me then maybe the NHL goes a little bit quicker than he thinks, and he doesn't want to say that because then it will maybe take a little juice out of the potential people tuning into his broadcast on Westwood One. Now I'm just messing around with Goldie. That's a fascinating question that I did propose, and I'll answer that later on in the show. But this is a Stanley Cup Final where, once again, I will give you the slogan, anyone but Pittsburgh. And I tweeted Buccigross that last night for his overtime challenges. Everyone thinks they're going to win these T-shirts, which he doesn't. Buccigross, what he's been able to do with that overtime challenge is unbelievable. But everyone is like religious, like following. They'll tweet him and say, oh, this person and this person. So last night I tweeted at anyone but Pittsburgh, and I didn't get it correct, although I did pick Pittsburgh to win. But we all know Ottawa did lose last night off the Kunitz game-winning goal in double overtime. But this series, you look at the coaching matchup, and this just shows how much success U.S. hockey has had and really the momentum they've been picking up over the years. Peter Laviolette and Mike Sullivan, 2 American coaches, the first time 2 American coaches will square off in the Stanley Cup Final. And we all know Laviolette's story since we got to see him in New York with the Islanders. We got to see him in Philadelphia with the Flyers. You saw him then leave New York, get fired because Mike Milbury is an idiot, and he's was incompetent in that part of it. After a guy takes you to the playoffs 2 straight years, you decide to fire him. That was a very foolish decision. And the next thing you know, he's in Carolina. He wins the Stanley Cup, and then eventually Carolina, after a nice run, gets rid of him. He goes to Philadelphia. He gets the Flyers to the Stanley Cup Final where they lost to Chicago in 6 games, and then he's been in Nashville for, this is his 3rd year. Lost in the first round the first year, then lost in the second round the second year. Did not lose in the third round in the third year because now he's in the Stanley Cup Final. So he is 4 wins away in his 3rd year as the head coach of the Nashville Predators from taking them and actually winning the Stanley Cup, which would be the first time in their franchise's history, because that is a team that they've only been around for 18 years. They've made the playoffs actually 10 out of the 18 years since they have been into existence. And that will be another thing that you could follow after the season and then going into next season. That process that will start with the Las Vegas team. And it's a little bit extra juice because it is Las Vegas, but that's an expansion team, and we'll see what the quality of play is, and they get a lot of players from the expansion draft, and what that quality of team will look like next year. But you look at Nashville, who came into existence 18 years ago. They've been a successful franchise when, I know this is their first Stanley Cup Final, but you've been to the playoffs 10 out of the 18 years. I'm rooting for Nashville. I don't want to see Sid the Kid repeat, even though I am not a Penguins fan, of course, as I made that very clear. You do got to respect what Crosby's doing. He's a heck of a player. And last night, even though Pittsburgh won, you just got an unbelievable Game 7, and it was exciting as could be. You could not turn it off. If you were wasting your time watching the NBA last night, as I told you, the Cavs were going to cover by the 10 points. It was the easiest prediction and the easiest spread of all time. If you decided to foolishly watch, unless if you are a Cavs fan or a Celtics fan, if you foolishly decided to watch the NBA last night, I don't know what's wrong with you. I really don't. Because the NHL was that good last night, went into a double overtime before Pittsburgh gets the game winner. And even Barkley, nice job out of Goldie bringing that up. Barkley, last night the TNT show was a little bit weird. I had both games on because I had the 2 TV setup. But that they were showing Shaq's toe, which, it was very scary to see. That thing was disgusting. And then now, whenever you see something disgusting on TV, everyone brings it up on Twitter. So I already had to basically, try to erase that from my memory when you see Shaq's big shoe and his big toe. What is he, a size like 22, 23 shoe? And you see that toe, it was disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And then everyone starts putting it on Twitter. But Barkley, he's been loving these NHL playoffs. And he even goes, hey, at halftime, this game is over. I'm waving the white flag. I'll go back to my hotel room, watch the hockey, and then I'll come back for the postgame show. So you got to love that out of Barkley. I love Sir Charles. He's great, and he doesn't show you his feet on television. Shaq, please don't show us those big dogs. We don't need to see them. So I will give you my Stanley Cup Final prediction coming up later in the show because we're off on Monday because of the Memorial Day weekend, the long weekend. And that means the final does start on Monday, so we will not be here to actually give you a prediction on Monday, so we will give it to you later on in the show. Still to come on the show today, coming up in 5 minutes, Chris Maragos is going to hop on board with us, the Eagles player who has been a special teams ace, and now he's doing a nice event coming up this weekend. And then coming up at 5:15 today, Pete Rose, the hit king, who should be in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion, will hop on board with us. Zach Gelb here with you on a Friday, 609-919-9200. 436 is the time in the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios. We're coming on back right after this, right here on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey, 920 AM, or 920thejersey.com. This is the Zach Gelb Show, yo. We'll be back right after this.